Imagine standing at the edge of a new season, a season that doesn't resemble the pain you came from, but the promise you've been waiting for. The winds are shifting, not against you, but for you. You've endured storms that broke you, nights that silenced you, and losses that seemed to erase your years of effort. But here's the divine truth. You're entering the season where God's favor will make up for every lost year. There are moments in life when we look back and wonder where all the time went. The years we spent trying to heal, rebuild, and believe again. The years that felt stolen by betrayal, wasted by disappointment, or consumed by waiting. But in God's timing, nothing is ever truly lost. He is not a God who forgets. He is a God who restores. And when He restores, He doesn't simply give back what was taken. He multiplies it, perfects it, and transforms it into something greater than you could have imagined. Perhaps you've cried over the years that seemed barren, the dreams that died before they could bloom, the relationships that withered away, the opportunities that slipped through your fingers. You thought those seasons defined your story, but they were merely the soil where God planted His next miracle. Because when God begins to move, He redeems what time itself couldn't repair. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, forgotten in prison and left in darkness. It seemed as if his life had been wasted by injustice. Yet when God's favor found him, every lost year was swallowed up by purpose. The pain that once imprisoned him became the very pathway to his destiny, and so it will be with you. God has been quietly working behind the scenes, aligning every delay with divine design. The waiting wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every no that broke you was building your endurance. Every door that shut was redirecting you to something far greater. And now, the same hand that once allowed loss is ready to release restoration. You are walking into a divine reversal, where the things that once worked against you will begin to work for you. Do not be disheartened by how long it has taken. God does not operate by the clocks of men. His timing redeems time itself. One moment of His favor can accomplish what a lifetime of labor could not. When He breathes upon your life, years of struggle will make sense, and blessings will rush in to fill every empty space. This is not the season of striving. This is the season of receiving. You've toiled in silence, now you will reap in abundance. You've been faithful in obscurity, now God will reveal you in light. The very people who overlooked you will witness the restoration that only divine favor can bring. When God's favor finds you, it rewrites the story of your past. It restores the years eaten by disappointment, by betrayal, by delay. It redeems your wasted effort and brings beauty out of ashes. Favor doesn't erase your scars. It transforms them into testimonies. It takes what was once painful and makes it powerful. And here's the secret. God doesn't repay you according to your loss. He repays according to His love. That's why His restoration is always greater than your suffering. The measure of your pain was never the measure of His plan. Every tear you cried was watering a promise that is now ready to bloom. So lift your head, stop counting the years you lost and start expecting the years He's about to redeem. This is your season of divine acceleration, where the slow will suddenly speed up, and what was once impossible will become undeniable. God is not just giving you back what you lost. He's giving you more than you can carry. You may have been overlooked, misunderstood, and broken, but you were never forgotten. Heaven has kept record of every silent battle, every faithful prayer, every time you chose to trust when you couldn't see the outcome. And now, the reward for your endurance is at the door. The season of favor is not coming, it's here. Every area that felt barren will now bear fruit. Every delay will prove to be divine. Every disappointment will turn into direction, and every loss will make room for the glory that's about to pour into your life. The same God who watched you suffer in silence is now preparing to bless you in public. What was hidden will be revealed. What was broken will be restored. What was delayed will be delivered. You are entering the season where God's favor will make up for every lost year, not just with blessings, but with meaning, peace, and divine completion. You'll realize that what was lost didn't vanish, it was being preserved for this very moment. Because when God restores, He doesn't just give you what you had, He gives you what you should have had if nothing had ever gone wrong. So, prepare your heart. The pain you endured wasn't in vain. You are stepping into a season that will redeem every tear, reward every prayer, and restore every year. The wait is over. The favor has come. You're not walking into the same life. You're walking into the fulfillment of every promise God whispered in your waiting. There are moments in life when we look at the calendar and feel a quiet ache inside, a sense that time has slipped through our fingers. We recall the dreams that didn't happen when we hoped they would, the prayers that lingered without answers, and the opportunities that seemed to pass us by. We wonder if perhaps we missed our moment, but here is a truth that silences every anxious thought. God's timing is never late, it is always redemptive. His schedule does not bow to human clocks. He moves in divine rhythm, one that redeems the years ye thought were gone forever. What feels delayed to you is perfectly timed in heaven. When you thought nothing was happening, God was arranging everything. Every detour, every disappointment, and every pause was part of a divine orchestration meant not to harm you, but to prepare you. Because God doesn't simply give what's lost. He restores it in ways that make it richer, fuller, and more meaningful than before. He takes what time stole and wraps it in His grace, returning it with purpose attached. Consider the life of those who walked before you, men and women whose seasons of waiting became the birthplace of their miracles. Think of Abraham, who waited for decades for a promise that seemed impossible, yet when the time came, the fulfillment was so glorious that the waiting years faded like shadows before the sunrise. That is what divine timing does. It redeems the pain of waiting by multiplying the joy of receiving. You see, God's delays are not signs of neglect. They are proof of precision. He doesn't rush greatness, and He doesn't hand out blessings that your soul isn't yet ready to hold. The longer it takes, the deeper the roots He is growing within you. What you perceive as a standstill is often God securing your foundation, ensuring that when His favor arrives, you are stable enough to sustain it. He would rather make you ready for the promise than give you something that your character cannot yet carry. There's a quiet beauty in divine timing. When it arrives, it brings peace instead of pressure, joy instead of confusion. It feels effortless, not because it is easy, but because it is right. You no longer have to force doors open, they open on their own. You no longer chase opportunities, they find you. That's what happens when time aligns with eternity. Everything begins to work together in harmony for your good. So if you find yourself in a season of waiting, do not despair. Heaven has not forgotten you. The silence is not rejection, it's refinement. The pause is not punishment, it's preparation. You are being shaped for something that can only arrive when the fullness of time has come. God is not making you wait to hurt you. He's making you wait so that when the blessing arrives, it fits perfectly, not too soon to break you, not too late to miss you, but exactly on time to bless you. One divine moment can restore decades of delay. One act of favor can rewrite the story of your past. When God steps in, the years you lost will be redeemed so fully that it will feel as though they were never wasted. The sorrow you carried will become the soil for joy. The closed doors that frustrated you will reveal themselves as protection. The people who walked away will make room for those who are meant to walk in. Everything, every heartbreak, every pause, every detour will make sense in the light of His timing. God does not measure time as humans do. What feels like waiting to you is working to Him. Every day of endurance is a stitch in the fabric of destiny. Every unanswered prayer is a seed buried beneath the soil of divine purpose. And just when it seems nothing is growing, God will call it forth in a moment that changes everything. When that moment comes, you will understand why it had to take this long. You will see that He wasn't withholding your blessing, He was perfecting it. He wasn't ignoring your prayers, He was preparing the stage for something greater. And when His timing unfolds, it will redeem every lost opportunity, every wasted tear, and every wasted night. Because God's timing is not about when it happens, it's about how it happens. It's about restoration, redemption, and renewal. And when it happens, you'll realize that no time was ever truly lost. It was only being redeemed. There are seasons in life that feel like wilderness. Empty, silent, and endless. You pray and hear no reply. You hope and see no change. You give and it feels like everything you poured out disappears into nothingness. These are the seasons when God seems distant, when suffering feels unjust, and when progress seems impossible. But in truth, those are not wasted seasons. They are sacred ones, for every soul destined for greatness must first walk through the wilderness of preparation. Pain is never pointless when God is in it. He uses it as the soil from which something extraordinary will grow. Just as the earth must be broken before it can yield a harvest, your heart too must be softened, shaped, and strengthened before it can hold the weight of divine favor. What felt like loss was, in reality, planting. Every heartbreak, every delay, every unanswered prayer, it was all a seed being buried deep, destined to bloom at the appointed time. There is something remarkable about how God works in suffering. He hides His greatest transformations in seasons of silence. When you thought nothing was happening, heaven was tilling the ground of your spirit. While you were questioning His plan, He was removing what could not go with you into your next season. The pain was not punishment, it was pruning, cutting away the unnecessary, the unhealthy, and the unworthy, so that what remains in you could bear lasting fruit. Think of how a sculptor works. Before the beauty of the form is revealed, there is first breaking, cutting, and shaping. The marble does not understand why it must lose so much of itself, but the sculptor sees what the marble cannot, the masterpiece hidden within. God works the same way. The pain you felt was His chisel, carving character into your soul, molding patience, humility, and strength where weakness once lived. When you were walking through that dark valley, you were not being buried, you were being built. When the people you trusted turned away, it was not rejection, it was redirection. God had to isolate you to prepare you. He had to strip away the noise so you could finally hear His voice. The tears you shed watered your roots, and now those roots run deep, deep enough to stand strong in the blessings that are coming, because favor without foundation will always fall. But you, through suffering, have become unshakable. The truth is, comfort rarely builds character. Ease never strengthens faith. It is in the furnace of affliction that faith is purified, that trust becomes unbreakable, and that dependence on God becomes complete. You learned to pray when there was no one to talk to. You learned to trust when nothing made sense. You learned to love when you had every reason to close your heart. And in those lessons, something sacred happened. Your spirit matured, and your heart began to mirror God's own. So when you look back on those hard years, don't curse them. Bless them. They taught you what success never could. They taught you resilience. They taught you how to stand when everything around you was falling. They taught you that peace isn't found in perfect circumstances, but in perfect trust. What you gained in the dark will sustain you in the light. What you learned in loss will multiply in restoration. The pain didn't disqualify you. It prepared you. It stripped away your dependence on people and deepened your dependence on God. It separated you from the shallow so you could walk in the sacred. It trained you to listen, to discern, to wait. Every scar is proof that you endured the preparation required for the promise. When God's favor now begins to unfold, it will not surprise him. He knew this was your destination all along, but it will humble you because you will see that none of the suffering was wasted. Every delay became design. Every wound became wisdom. Every tear became testimony. The season of suffering was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to develop you. It was the hidden workshop of your destiny, the quiet classroom of your calling. And now, as you step into your season of divine favor, you will realize that every painful lesson was the seed of your present strength. You are no longer the person who began that storm. You have been refined by fire, not consumed by it. And that is why this new season will not break you, it will bless you, because you've already been through the breaking that made you ready to receive it. When we think of restoration, our human minds often imagine simply getting back what was taken, the same opportunities, the same relationships, the same moments we once cherished. But God's way of restoring is not like man's. He never merely replaces what you lost. He multiplies it. His favor does not come to return you to where you were. It comes to lift you higher than you've ever been. There's a vast difference between replacement and restoration. Replacement gives you what was lost. Restoration gives you more than you could ever imagine. When God's favor begins to move in your life, you'll realize that his blessings are not bound by what was taken. They are measured by what he intends to give. You might have lost years, but he will add meaning to every one of them. You might have been betrayed, but he will surround you with people who cherish you in ways that heal the deepest parts of your soul. You might have been humiliated, but his favor will clothe you in honor so radiant that those who once pitied you will now witness your elevation. God never restores in equal measure. He restores in overflow. The very areas where you felt empty will become fountains of abundance. The doors that were slammed in your face will be replaced by gates so wide that blessings will pour through them without resistance. When his hand moves, everything multiplies. Joy multiplies, peace multiplies, opportunities multiply. What the enemy meant for harm becomes a platform for God's power to be revealed in ways you could not have orchestrated on your own. Think about Job, a man who lost everything. His health, his wealth, his family, his reputation. It seemed like his life had been utterly destroyed. But when God's favor returned to him, it didn't simply give back what was stolen. It multiplied it. Job received double for his trouble, double the blessing, double the honor, double the peace. And that's how God works. He doesn't repay you according to your pain. He rewards you according to his promise. The pain you endured was never the end of your story. It was the setup for your overflow. You had to lose something so that he could show you how much greater his restoration would be. What you thought was subtraction was actually multiplication in disguise. Sometimes God allows something to be removed, not to leave you with less, but to clear space for something greater. When his favor begins to flow, it will reach into every barren place and cause life to bloom again. Where you saw emptiness, abundance will emerge. Where you saw endings, new beginnings will rise. The areas where you once experienced shame will become your greatest testimonies of grace. People will look at your life and say, "How did they recover from that?" And you will know the answer. It wasn't recovery, it was divine multiplication. You see, the beauty of God's favor is that it rewrites the definition of loss. In His hands, loss becomes the birthplace of greater purpose. He multiplies what was broken. He turns ashes into beauty. He transforms pain into power. When you hand over your past to Him, every disappointment, every failure, every tear, He gives you something you never had before, a deeper faith, a stronger peace, a clearer vision, and a joy that no circumstance can steal. You won't just regain what you lost, you'll gain what you never even knew you needed. The relationships that failed taught you what true love feels like. The opportunities that fell apart prepared you for the ones that fit perfectly. The dreams that died made room for the ones that align with His purpose. Every closed door was a divine edit, making way for the masterpiece He was crafting all along. When God multiplies, He multiplies in dimensions far beyond material things. He multiplies your wisdom, your resilience, your discernment, your spiritual depth. What you gain in His restoration cannot be counted or confined. It expands every part of you until you realize that the loss was never really a loss. It was transformation in progress. And when that favor unfolds, you'll look back and see how intentional it all was. You'll understand that God didn't forget you. He was perfecting your blessing so it could arrive in abundance. You'll see that what you thought was over was merely being multiplied behind the scenes. So, don't mourn what you lost any longer. Lift your eyes, because what's coming will not just replace the pain, it will multiply the joy. The same places where you once felt robbed will become the places where you overflow. The same years that seemed wasted will now become the years of double harvest. God's favor is not fair, it's abundant. It doesn't balance the scales, it tips them in your favor. You are not about to receive a fraction of what was taken. You are about to receive a flood. Because when God restores, He doesn't give back what was lost. He gives back more than you ever had to begin with. There are moments in life when you give your best and receive nothing in return. You pour out love to those who repay you with silence. You help people who forget your kindness the moment they no longer need it. You stay faithful in your responsibilities when no one notices the weight you carry. You choose to do what is right even when no one claps for you. Those quiet acts of goodness often feel invisible, as if they drift into the air and vanish. But here's the sacred truth. Nothing you have done in sincerity has gone unseen. Heaven has witnessed it all. Every prayer whispered through tears, every sacrifice made in silence, every choice to forgive when anger felt easier, God saw it. He took note of the moments you chose integrity over approval, compassion over convenience, faith over fear. When no one said thank you, when no one noticed your struggle, when you stood alone with trembling hands and a hopeful heart, heaven recorded every detail. Nothing escapes the eyes of the one who sees all things. You may have thought your kindness went unnoticed, but to God it was worship. Every hidden act of obedience became an offering. Every small decision to stay honest, to stay kind, to stay faithful became a seed planted in the unseen soil of eternity. And while others overlooked it, God has been watering those seeds with His promise. The harvest is coming, not because the world owes you, but because God is just. There's something profoundly holy about hidden sacrifice. It tests the heart like nothing else. It asks, will you still serve when no one applauds? Will you still love when love isn't returned? Will you still do right when no one is watching? These are the moments that shape your spirit into something eternal. These are the tests that separate those who live for attention from those who live for truth. And it is in these quiet, unseen moments that God builds the foundation for his greatest rewards. Think of how many great stories began in silence. David tended sheep in obscurity before he faced Goliath. Ruth gathered grain in the shadows before she walked into destiny. Joseph served in a prison before he ruled a palace. Each of them experienced a season where their faithfulness went unseen by men, but never by God. When the time came, his favor found them, lifted them, and repaid every hidden act of loyalty with divine elevation. You too have been walking through that same sacred pattern. While you thought heaven was quiet, it was actually attentive. Every act of patience has been noted. Every battle you fought quietly, every tear you wiped away and kept moving forward. God saw it all. He saw the humility it took not to retaliate. He saw the strength it took to keep believing. He saw the courage it took to smile when your heart was breaking. Those moments became heaven's evidence, proof of your faith, proof of your growth, proof of your readiness. And now that record of faithfulness is what's calling his favor toward you. God never ignores devotion. He honors it in his own time and in his own way. The reward may not come when you expect it, but when it arrives, it will come so abundantly that you'll realize why it had to take time. He doesn't pay in fragments. He pays in fullness. When he blesses publicly what you sacrificed privately. You may not understand why your good deeds seemed forgotten, but remember this: the same people who ignored your effort will one day witness your elevation. The same people who underestimated your quiet perseverance will watch as God brings fruit from every unseen seed you sowed. For his favor always finds those who worked faithfully in silence. Every hidden act has been building your future in secret. Every moment of endurance has been adding weight to your blessing. The world may not see the nights you spent praying, the tears you hid, the kindness you gave when you had little left, but heaven did. And heaven rewards differently. It multiplies what was done in love. It takes small acts of faith and turns them into great testimonies of grace. So, if you ever feel unseen, remember this: you are not forgotten. You are being recorded. Your faith is on heaven's ledger, and your name is written on the pages of divine remembrance. God has been keeping score, not to punish you, but to reward you in ways beyond your imagination. The blessing that's coming isn't random, it's not luck. It's a response, a divine acknowledgement that says, I saw what you did when no one else did. And when his favor finally arrives, it will be so evident, so undeniable, that everyone will know it wasn't man who lifted you, it was God. Because heaven's reward always follows hidden faithfulness. There are moments in life when chapters seem to close so abruptly that you can almost hear the sound of their ending. The job that slipped away, the friendship that dissolved overnight, the love that ended before it ever truly began. You look at those endings and whisper to yourself, that's it, my story is over. But what you fail to see in that moment of heartbreak is that the author hasn't stopped writing. The ink may have paused, the page may have turned, but God's pen is still in motion. What you thought was over was only being rewritten. So often we mourn what God meant to modify. We cling to chapters that no longer serve our purpose, forgetting that the same God who allowed the ending is also the one preparing the continuation. You see, when something in your life collapses, it doesn't mean God has abandoned the story. It means He's editing it for your greater good. The pain you felt was not the death of your purpose. It was the removal of a paragraph that no longer fit the plot. You thought the relationship that ended left you broken, but it actually freed you from someone who couldn't walk with you into the next season. You thought the door that shut was rejection, but it was divine redirection. You thought losing that opportunity ruined your path, but it merely rerouted you toward one that leads to destiny. What felt like destruction was in truth reconstruction, a holy rearranging that only God could see from His vantage point. It's hard to believe that when your heart is in pieces. It's hard to trust that the story is still unfolding when all you can see is the wreckage of what was. But faith, at its core, is trusting the author, even when you cannot read the next line. God specializes in writing beauty into broken narratives. He takes what others scribbled in cruelty and rewrites it with mercy. He transforms what was once your downfall into your deliverance. The story doesn't end in the valley, it turns there. Every painful ending you've endured has been a divine rewrite in progress. Every closed chapter has made room for a better one. Sometimes what feels like a full stop is only a comma in God's sentence. He pauses not to abandon you, but to add depth, to weave meaning into the pain, wisdom into the confusion, and strength into the weakness. One day, you'll look back and realize that the things you begged God to prevent were the very things that brought you to the place you were always meant to be. Think about how the greatest stories of faith are filled with apparent endings that became divine beginnings. Joseph's betrayal looked like tragedy until God revealed it as a pathway to purpose. Job's suffering seemed like destruction until God restored him double. Naomi's bitterness seemed final until Ruth appeared and redemption began. Each of these moments of despair were actually the opening lines of transformation, and so it is with you. The story you thought ended in loss will end in glory. God's rewriting is not merely about replacing pain with pleasure, it's about redeeming meaning. He doesn't erase your past, He reframes it. The same moments that once brought you tears will later bring you gratitude because you'll see how they fit perfectly into the masterpiece He was creating. The people who left were not the last characters in your story. They were temporary ones, meant only to teach you, not to travel with you. When they exit, it's not because the story is over, but because their part is complete. The truth is, God's hand never leaves the manuscript of your life. Even when you can't feel Him, He's revising, realigning, and rewriting what others tried to ruin. The ending they spoke over you, the failure, the betrayal, the loss, was never the final word. The author holds the final word, and His word always ends in restoration, not ruin, in favor, not failure. So, stop rereading the chapters that hurt you. Stop assuming that a broken piece means a broken story. God is not done with you. The very things that made you weep will one day make you worship. The same pain that left you empty will soon overflow with purpose, because God never allows something to end without already preparing the next beginning. You're not living in a story of endings, you're living in a story of rewrites. The story is being refined, not ruined. The loss that devastated you is becoming the plot twist that glorifies Him. And when the new chapter unfolds, you'll finally understand why everything had to happen the way it did. The things you mourned will make sense in the light of His restoration. So trust the author. The ink is still wet, the pen is still moving, and the page you're about to step into will make every painful chapter worth reading. What you thought was over wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something more beautiful than you ever imagined. There comes a moment when everything begins to shift. Quietly at first, then suddenly. The doors that refuse to open start swinging wide. The opportunities you once chased now come searching for you. The people who overlooked you begin to notice the light you carry. This is what happens when you step into the season of overflow and acceleration. It's not coincidence. It's not luck. It's the divine timing of a God who redeems every second that life seemed to steal. For years you may have felt like your progress was painfully slow. Every step forward seemed followed by 2 steps back. You prayed, you waited, and you endured long nights of silence, wondering if anything was ever going to change. But what you didn't see was that God was building momentum behind the scenes. The very delay that frustrated you was storing energy. Like a slingshot being pulled back, the tension was preparation, the resistance was power gathering. And now, when God releases it, you will not just move forward, you will accelerate. Divine acceleration is when God does in a moment what should have taken years. It's when the tables turn so quickly that even you struggle to understand how it happened. The job, the connection, the breakthrough, the healing, all appear in perfect alignment, as if heaven itself decided it was time, because it is time. You have been faithful in obscurity, patient in adversity, and steadfast in your belief that better days were coming. Now those days are here. This season will not resemble the last one. Where you once saw closed doors, you'll see divine openings. Where you struggled to find peace, peace will pursue you. Where you fought to be understood, you'll be celebrated. The years that felt dry and desolate will suddenly produce fruit faster than you imagined possible. And it won't make sense, because favor rarely does. Overflow is not about excess, it's about evidence. It's God showing the world that faith still works. It's the visible manifestation of invisible endurance. It's heaven's way of saying, I saw every tear, every prayer, every sacrifice, and now I'm repaying you with more than enough. When God brings overflow, He doesn't fill your cup halfway. He fills it until it spills. Until your blessing becomes a blessing to others, the favor you receive will not stop with you. It will flow through you. This acceleration will touch every part of your life. Your peace, your purpose, your relationships, your provision, things that once required striving will begin to happen with ease. Not because you stopped working, but because the wind of heaven has begun to blow behind you. The same hands that held you up in the storm will now propel you into your destiny. Remember, there is a rhythm to divine timing. For every long season of stillness, there is a short season of sudden movement. You may not see it coming, but you'll feel it. Doors opening one after another, opportunities unfolding like dominoes, unexpected favor finding its way to you. This is not random. It's the divine catch-up. It's heaven restoring years of delay in a fraction of the time. You will notice that the very things that used to drain you no longer do. The burdens that once felt heavy will lift. The confusion that clouded your path will clear. You will walk in a peace that no storm can steal, and you will realize that what took others years to achieve, God is now granting you in months, even days, because when His favor accelerates your journey, time bends to His will. The key now is to stay ready. Do not doubt the sudden blessings that begin to unfold. Don't question whether you deserve them. You endured for them. You were tested for them. You were refined for them. The favor that's coming is not a surprise to heaven. It's a response to your endurance. God is not rushing. He's rewarding. He's restoring not just what you lost, but what you should have had all along. So, Step boldly into this new season. Walk with confidence, not caution. You've carried the weight long enough. Now you'll carry the reward. You've been in survival mode for years. Now you will live in overflow. The time for waiting has passed. This is the time for reaping. Because when God decides it's your season of acceleration, no power on earth can slow it down. The same years that felt stolen will now feel restored 100-fold. Every delay will make sense, every detour will reveal purpose, and every disappointment will be redeemed in abundance. You are not entering a season of small blessings. You are stepping into a divine overflow, where favor will move faster than your fears, grace will outrun your grief, and everything that was once behind you will now begin to catch up, all at once. There comes a point in every journey where the past no longer has the power to define you, and this is that moment. You are stepping into a divine season, not of recovery, but of redemption. Every tear you shed, every year that slipped through your fingers, every prayer that went unanswered, none of it was forgotten. It was all being gathered, stored, and prepared for this very unveiling of God's favor. You have walked through valleys that few understood, carrying faith when there was no visible reason to. You've been patient in pain, steadfast in silence, and faithful in waiting, and now heaven responds. This is your appointed time, not by luck, not by chance, but by divine design. The season that once broke you will now build you. The years that once drained you will now deliver you. God is not giving you back what you lost. He is giving you back better. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over. You are not behind. You are right on schedule. Every delay was a setup for a deeper purpose. Every heartbreak was making room for greater joy. Every ending was the beginning of something far more magnificent than you could have imagined. As you move forward, do not look back with regret. Look ahead with gratitude. The same God who carried you through the storm is now crowning you in the sunlight of restoration. The favor that's coming will not just bless you. It will astonish those who watched you struggle. You will rise, not because of your strength, but because of His grace. You will flourish, not because the world finally sees you, but because heaven has declared it's your time. This is your season, the one where God's favor makes up for every lost year. Walk into it with faith, with joy, and with peace, knowing that the years you thought were wasted were actually the foundation for the miracle you're about to witness. You've waited long enough. Now watch how quickly God restores everything that was lost and multiplies it before your very eyes.